Hey, everybody. Hope everyone is having an absolutely wonderful time here at CF Summit 2021. Welcome to my talk using ColdFusion with no-code and GraphQL. My name is Mark Takata, and I am the Adobe ColdFusion Technical Evangelist. A little bit about me. I've actually been a developer for over 20 years, well over 20 years. Gosh, I don't even want to think about how far back it goes. But recently, about 9 months ago, I joined Adobe as the technical evangelist for ColdFusion, and you guys have been stuck with me ever since. Some of my hobbies include Fusion and swearing at JavaScript. So without further ado, what are we going to talk about today? So today, we're going to actually talk about, oops, there we go. We're going to talk about no-code, and you've probably heard quite a bit about no-code, low-code. Like, what is it? What's going on? What is that? In fact, you might have been asked, potentially, as we were, by some people, is ColdFusion a low-code platform? Well, the answer is no, it's not. It's maybe a lesser code platform. That's a potentially somewhat accurate answer to that question. But so what is no-code in particular? Well, to answer that, you have to think about what is programming. Well, programming at a very, very high level is taking logic and putting that into structures and then using that to solve tasks, which is very high level and probably not super useful for someone learning to program. But here it actually answers the question, what is no code? Well, no code takes those structures that we would normally be putting in as code, and it abstracts those using usually graphical user interfaces, GUIs, to allow you to create workflows, integrations, that sort of thing. And there's a wide variety of use cases for no code. You could do, as I said, integrations. You could do API to API talking. There's all kinds of things, including also data entry, which is what I'm going to be showing you today. So why no code, though? Like, why would you do that? I mean, we're all programmers here. Is this really for us? Is this something that we're going to say, oh, we're not going to program anymore, we're just going to use these no-code platforms? Well, it's really not necessarily for us, but it can be beneficial to us. So to give you an idea, what can no-code do for your company? Well, it can expand the capability of the people who are already there. We all know there's people in our orgs often that are not necessarily programmers, but they might be highly technical, highly skilled business analysts, for example, people who are extremely good with Excel. Excel is actually a really great example. It might be the world's first low-code, no-code platform, actually, depending on how you're using it. And people have used it badly, totally gonna, yeah, not gonna go there, but it is possible for those people to leverage these platforms and help out in creating things. So I call these where you're actually having to take that data and manipulate it, do ETL on it, do all kinds of transforms, really, really complex, difficult things. And so we as developers, we're actually expected to handle both sides of that. And while certainly we can, and the argument often is, well, if you're such a good developer, you should be able to do the simple stuff really quickly. Yeah, we can, and we often do, but sometimes there's only so fast that you can do something when you're coding out form fields and doing all that, unless you're using some kind of generation, which was a whole different talk. Unless you're using one of those, it can take time, and it's kind of actually wasteful. So to take someone who has an understanding, for example, of what data integrity needs to look like, what data structures need to look like, what the information is that we need to get put in, if you can hand someone a controlled tool that will work with an expected outcome at the end, so some kind of output that we can then utilize, it's actually a really powerful way to increase efficiency in larger corporations. So which application platforms are there? Well, there are hundreds hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. This is a really, really fast growing, very popular place for new applications to be created. I mean, Salesforce is in on the game, Webflow, Zapier, you might have heard of. IFTTT, if this, then that, is a really, really popular way to create workflows for yourself using other applications. So it'll tie in. For example, if I send a Slack message, then email me the message, and then when that email comes in, do something else. Maybe put that in a database or put that into Zendesk or something. Very, very popular. But the one that I'm going to actually talk about today is Airtable. And you might have heard of Airtable. It's definitely been something out there that a lot of people have used for a wide variety of things. And if you go onto Airtable and take a look at their examples and their templates, you'll find an absolute universe of different use cases that people have cooked together. They're kind of like recipes. So people have built out, content management solutions. They've built out customer relationship management solutions, all kinds of really, really powerful contact managers, that sort of thing. So what is Airtable though? Like, what is it at its core? Well, it's a interesting little, sorry. Apparently my sound went off for that slide. Well, I'll take questions at the end, and whatever was missed, I can kind of handle it there. So what is Airtable? Airtable, it's kind of a spreadsheet. It's kind of a database, and it's kind of a relational manager, which sounds god-awful and very complex, but it's actually really, really well done. It's free for basic use. So if you want to go to airtable.com and sign up today, they have a free tier that you can do a lot of really, really cool things with. You can actually have some team members in there with you and share things. It's really powerful. They do, of course, have other tiers, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, where you do have to pay for all that. And the important thing is that, and the reason that I'm using Airtable is because it has an exposed API. So let's hop over, and this is Airtable. So this is my workspace here, and I've actually already created a little bit of a demo. So let me just kind of go through and show you a few of the things that are going on. So I just made CF Summit demo, and if you click in, you'll see you've got your tables. Oh, and I should say, so the nomenclature that they use here is a base is a database, very clever, and then of course tables are tables, and then you have the grids, which include all of your rows and columns. So kind of a mixture of spreadsheet and database terminology. And so what you're seeing here, this is a very, very basic to-do list that I've made for myself. I've got a column for items, I've got a column for notes, and I've got a column for done. But what is that, right? Like, is it just a spreadsheet where they're just entries? Well, sort of. So if you come in here and go to customize field type, you can actually see there's a huge, huge number of different things that this column could be. It could be, short text, long text, date, URLs, currencies, percentages, auto numbers, and I'll talk about auto numbers in a little bit. And what that does is it allows you to filter a little bit what is going in there. And that's going to be important later if you want to have a little bit of data integrity and make sure that the data that's coming in actually makes sense. So what do we have here? This is actually a string, text, short text, a string, short text. And the done is their version of it is called a checkbox. And it's kind of an odd little thing. It's basically a combination between a Boolean and the way that a checkbox works. So instead of being true false, it's true null. takes a little bit of getting used to. That's the decision they decided to make. So that's the way it works. So you can actually create as many tables as you want with whatever structure that you want. And one of the really powerful things, and I unfortunately don't have time to get into this, and I did a Twitch on this, and if anybody's really interested in it, I'll be streaming on Twitch starting next month every week. And if someone is interested in seeing how I can create relational relationships inside of Airtable, I can go through that again and show that. But so that's how you would create relations, and essentially it's just lookup tables. So, for example, in the items, this could be a list that is in a different table that you choose as a drop down, so that you can control, so people don't, say dog walk is one word, or puppy walk or doggy walk, right? You get all these like data issues if you just allow freeform entry. I didn't go there here. That's kind of that's going into the realm of database design, which I don't want to open that particular can of worms. One thing that you'll notice here, though, is there's actually no ID column. And you might think, oh, no, Mark, it's right here. It's these numbers. Those are actually line numbers. Those do not get translated across when you pull this data back out. So that was the first mistake that I made when I came in here and looked at it. What it does do, though, and we'll show you this later, every single line creates its own UUID, randomly generated ID that's unique, which is awesome because it allows you to do full CRUD operations on this. But you cannot order by it. So there's no guarantee that what you get back will be in any way orderable based on the one that came before it or the one that will come after it. So if you do create data sets that you need to make orderable, you kind of have to add that yourself, which is where the auto number field actually comes in. So you can create for yourself an auto number field and use that. One thing to also note, you'll notice that here on the left, this column kind of has this line, and it looks a little more important than the columns to the left. So Airtable has this concept of a main column or an important column. This column will actually be what gets displayed often in other places. So if you're pulling in like if you're trying to pull in this table into another table and it's doing like a preview of the field, it will actually pull that column and preview that before anything else. It's not a real good way to change that, unfortunately. So make sure that whatever goes in there actually makes sense and is important. Like in this case, it's the item that I'm doing. That actually makes sense. For a to-do list, you want the item being displayed there. So I don't make the mistake I did, which is put an auto number there, because goodness knows that means nothing to anybody. Okay, so cool. You've made this online thing. It's kind of like, Excel Online in a way with more features. Big deal. Okay, so what about that? Well, the nice thing here is obviously you could give this to someone at your at your work who is not a programmer, and they could use this to create a nice little database for holding information, whatever that information might be. It might be a contact list or whatever. But now how do you use it? Well, you could come in here and just add stuff like, like, I don't know, bake bread, right? You could do that. And I already baked bread, so I'm going to say it's done, right? You could do that, but unfortunately, to be in here, you have to have an account. And if you're on the free tier, it's not a big deal. It does allow you, though, to change someone else's table structure, which is not great. There's not a lot of permissions in the free tier. You can't lock tables; those are a paid tier thing. So that's not great. So what you can do, though, is you can actually create a form based on this table. And then you can push this out and link it for people to enter stuff in. So I'm going to go ahead and just preview this. And of course, it's going to be very ugly because I put nothing in it. Now this was doing, okay, there we go. So cool. Okay, well, we have a very ugly form. You'll notice that, this is not changeable in any way. I could just share this with anybody. I mean, you guys could probably even hop on right now and enter items, because I know you might do that to mess me up. But so yeah, like pet my dog. Woof woof. And I pet my dog every day, so I'm done. And I'll submit that. And if I go back here, you'll actually see in my grid view that actually added that in there. So super, super awesome. Okay, well, so that's that, right? But now what? Now, as programmers, we're like, well, that's great. Okay, you just took over my job of making forms. Big deal. Aha! But now here's the first fun thing, is that Airtable actually automatically generates API endpoints for every one of their tables. Now I got your attention. So to see that, you actually go to airtable.com. Oopsie, not that one. Oh gosh, sorry. Move out of my way, please. There we go. So if you go to airtable.com/API, it'll have you log in, and you'll see here's my workspace. Now, the great thing here, this is a great example of documentation generation. So all of this documentation is actually generated using all of my tables, my names, my data, all of that. So you can actually see what everything will look like with your own data, right? So you've got, you've got pulling out fields, and it gives you curl, it gives you JavaScript, sample code that you can use to pull stuff out. People, so what does that look like? So I did just a little thing here with this is actually a different table. This is one that I had elsewhere that I had just a code sample for, and so I've decided to use it instead. And I did a very, very ugly output here. I actually did my rapid application development refactor on my next version, but you can see I use CF HTTP, and I go and I
recording in
pretty
progress.
darn cool, I would think, right? But wait, there's more. Let's back up, by the way, for a second and talk a little bit about, GraphQL. So what is GraphQL? Probably, sorry, what was the last part that you guys heard? Okay, sound is back now. Not sure what's going on with the sound, but I'm gonna keep going here. Okay, so GraphQL, pretty popular language. You may have heard of it. It's a query language, of course, and I believe it was made for Facebook. Carl, yes, CF. Oh. Let me go back to my code. Yeah, let me go back to my code, since it sounds like the sound was out. So, so basically, what I did here is I took a different Airtable that I had that had just a couple of columns in it. It had an ID column, and it had a name column for all of my pets, and I use CFHTTP, and I send in my API key, and I set that as a result, and then I deserialize. So of course the return is going to be in JSON, as would be expected. And then I wrote just for myself an ugly little table output thing here, and and returned back something that I put into data tables. Okay, and then what I did with that is rendered this. So this is directly from the API endpoint for looking up it's basically a select star type of thing. Like, give me everything back from the API, and then I just dump it out into a loop and throw it into my page, and there you go. Kind of ugly. You could do it better, I'm sure, and I do it better in my next example. So moving back though to GraphQL. GraphQL is a really cool language. It's a way to query data that allows you to structure your query to look like what your return will be. And this is a really powerful concept. It's something like, if you look at SQL, for example, right? When you're writing SQL, select, table, whatever, from this, where that, right? Like, so that's its own structure. That's, structured query language, right? Transact or Oracle or whatever you're using, right? That's got its own structure. But then when you get the data back, it's in like a query return, like in CF, it's a form of struct, right? It's a query object that you can then loop through. If you want to turn that into JSON, you can, but it doesn't look like the thing that you asked. So GraphQL actually, and I'll show you this in a little bit, actually looks like what you get back, which helps you design things. And the other nice thing is that it's really good at only going out and grabbing the things that you want. Courtesy, will video and sample code be available for download later? Yes. I will show you, I will link my GitHub, and the video will be available for replay later today, I believe. They've been getting this stuff up really fast. So let's take a look at what GraphQL actually looks like. But before we do that, let's talk about putting GraphQL into Airtable. So I already talked about how the APIs are exposed on the back end. But let's say you want to play with GraphQL and use it there. So there is a solution for doing that. It's something called BaseQL. So in Airtable database, they're called bases, right? Someone got clever. And you can use BaseQL in Airtable for free. However, to use any app on Airtable, you must be on the Pro plan. So what does that mean? So that means that if you want to try this out, you have to actually upgrade your plan from the free one to the one that's $2 per seat per month. Not an extreme amount of money. I think it's $2. It's not a lot. No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of something. I think it's $15. Sorry, $15 a month. So, okay, not really a big deal. And it's even easier because they have a 30-day trial. So if you want to try this, if you want to go in and install this and play with it and do that, just go to Airtable and just sign up for the trial. They don't ask for a credit card. They don't do anything like that. You just get to use the Pro plan features for, I believe it's 15 days. And then after that, you just lose the ability to continue using the features that are Pro only. You don't lose your databases or anything like that. So for example, here in my example, when this account loses its ability to be Pro, this just says to use apps, you must be in Pro. There is apparently another way to use apps. Oh, $20. Sorry, Mark. Is it $20 monthly and $15 yearly? Oh, 24. Oh, good Lord. Boy, they're charging me a lot. Okay, so again, yeah, it is money, and that it really does add up. I mean, if you're going to have your team on this, it's really something you're going to have to budget for. It is powerful. And again, you only need enough accounts for the people that are using it. So that, kind of offsets it a little bit. So how do I use BaseQL here in Airtable? It's pretty easy. So what you would do is you make yourself an account. You go to your account. You click on your well, it's not a picture of me. It's a green circle with a person in it. And you click account information, and you'll see down here there's an API key, and you can regenerate it. And by the way, for all those hacker types that are going to be going in and like changing all my stuff, I'll be regenerating my API key later. So but you'll regenerate it, and what will happen is when you come up here and you say add an app, you search for BaseQL, you say add, and the first thing it'll do is ask for your API key. You'll go ahead and paste that in there and save it, and that will connect BaseQL and Airtable. Once you've done that, though, what you can do is somewhere. Okay, I must have closed it. So you can click here, the GraphQL Explorer. Sorry, not there. What did I do? My bad. Sorry. I clicky bad. Come on. There we go. Open in BaseQL. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Okay, so what are we looking at here? This is actually the BaseQL interface for generating GraphQL to pull back data from my table. And you can see here, I named it the very, very original table 1. If I click down here, what I can do is I can say, okay, pull back, everything. Give me everything. And you'll see it's automatically going through and adding all of this code in here. If you look at it, this kind of looks like JSON, which is awesome, right? Because what are we going to get back? JSON, right? So you can kind of see you've got the table here, you've got the ID, the item notes. So this, to me, the first time I saw this, I was kind of like, that doesn't make a ton of sense, maybe. But once you start using it, it becomes really, 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 really nice. Like your mind just adapts to it very, very quickly, and it's probably why it's becoming more and more popular. Now, I know someone's going to ask, so let me answer the question first. No, currently there is no native GraphQL support in ColdFusion. Okay. So you cannot pass this query as it is right here. You can't just directly pass that into a GraphQL endpoint and have it return back JSON. You have to do a little bit of magic to it, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Now, are we thinking about perhaps looking at adding that? We are definitely thinking about adding that. So if you want to see that, definitely please let us know. Let me know in the comments if that's something that's interesting to you. Definitely go on the forums and in Slack. Let us know that you're interested in it, so that we can push that up and maybe start getting some work done on adding that. So right here, this is what the query looks like here in native format. Let's see what it looks like here. Okay. So what I did is I just created a CFM page. I didn't create an endpoint. I didn't create a CFC with a function or anything of that nature. I just wanted, because I wanted to just be able to pull this up and not deal with it too much. So actually, hold on. Sorry. It's still set for me when I was practicing earlier. My bad. So ta-da. Okay. So what do we have here? I'm setting, by the way, I'm doing tags to annoy people. Sorry. I use both tags and script. As you saw, my other example was in script. This is in tags. So what I'm doing is I'm just setting a value up top. It's just a string, and I'm setting it to what looks very much like what looks very much like this, right? So you saw query table ID, right? query table ID. The structure is a little bit different though, right? It's a little bit off. So why is it doing that? Well, it's doing that just because of the way that ColdFusion passes stuff in using CFHTTP param. It's just kind of the way it is. And here, it's not that onerous. It's not that difficult. If you're just doing a select star, which this basically is, and it pulling back the data, it's not that big a deal. It does become a little bit of a big deal when you start doing some filtering, which I'll show you in a second. So what does this look like? So this looks like that when it returns back. So you get back, I don't know if I can, there we go. You get back a bunch of JSON, as you might expect. Awesome. Very, very easy. And what you can then do, which is what I did here, is you can take that return, getData.cfm is my URL, and you can just dump it right in as an endpoint for data tables. And you get back that. So here's the full return from our return. Now, earlier I mentioned that Airtable generates a randomly generated unique ID, and there it is. So now it's actually exposed. So now if you're going to be doing something like crud operations, for example, you can actually go in here and set this as, basically your where, like set the ID is equal to that, and you want to change that from make dinner to eat dinner, I guess, right? You could do that by passing stuff back in. I don't actually have I don't have any examples of doing like writes and reads, but it's in there. It's part of the it's part of the base QL package. You can read and write. I do believe you have to set. There's a setting to allow that. There's like an advanced setting that unlocks it to do CRUD operations. I don't have that on, just to prevent someone from randomly finding this and inserting all sorts of crazy things in it. But it's very easy to set, and once you set it, it's there for good. So okay, cool. But what about filtering? Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit different. So if you go in here and you go to base QL and you say, I want to filter by the item, boop, and you want that item to be wash car. I'm going to go ahead and say that, and it should return back. There we go. The item is wash car, and here it is. So this is the way that you filter it inside of here. Looks really easy. Looks like the return, like very, very easy to kind of conceptualize in your head, right? It's a little bit difficult though when you hop in here and have to do this in CF, and this is kind of why I'd like to have a more robust native version. So this is the version of that query with the filter, and you'll be like, oh, hey, you're having to escape quotes. Yes. So this is where things start to get kind of ugly. And the more filtering you do and the deeper you go into this, the more complex this type of escaping starts to get. It becomes really, really easy to make dumb mistakes, especially if you're me. And yeah, all that said, though, when I go and do this and I pop in here and I refresh the page, poof, dog walk. So it's as simple as that. Obviously, I could have used the data table search as well, but this way you're only pulling back the thing that you actually need. So I'm definitely going to say, I definitely recommend, oh, I don't know what just happened. So if you're interested in GraphQL, which I know a lot of people are, there's great resources online, of course, but I also definitely recommend that you give this a try. And for those of you that are like, well, I'm not paying $24 a month, give the beta, there's a beta way of getting apps to run in the free Airtable way. I didn't do it here because beta, I didn't want it to crash. And also, if you're ever going to use this like in anger, you don't want to be using beta products. But there is a way. It's using something called blocks, which is a beta feature in Airtable, and it's definitely a little more hacky. You have to like hack the pieces in place, and then it starts working. But theoretically, if you do that, you don't actually have to pay to be on a pro plan. Now, you get other really cool things, of course, with the pro plan. So, you know, you might just want to pay for that. Like you get to be able to do things like lock down some of your tables. That's actually a really, really nice thing if you're working with a team and you just really need to make sure that one particular table just doesn't change. That you can't do that under the free plan. Anybody could go in there and accidentally, or you know, maybe you stole their lunch last week, and so not so accidentally delete your stuff or change your stuff, or you know, change a column. Like maybe they think, oh, this shouldn't be an int, this should be something else, and they'll change the column, and of course, poof, it breaks everything. So there are good reasons for that. What I was going to say though is, if you're looking to learn GraphQL, this interface is a really, really good place to do it. Can I please share some code samples? Raja, I'm not sure which I've had some code samples up there. I'm actually going to have my code samples on GitHub. So they're not there quite yet, but but here it is. This is going to be my GitHub. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask for questions. Yeah, Raja. Yeah. So it's going to be up on in my GitHub, which is just github.com/markartakata, and look for the CF Summit 2021. It's not up yet. I was waiting to just finish everything here. I'll push that up in a few minutes, and it'll be up there soon. You'll also find my slide deck up there as well. And there's also code from previous CF Summits and other things that you can laugh at my horrible my horrible code. So here's all the information on how to get a hold of me. My email is takata@adobe.com. My Twitter is @marktakata. I'm actually going to start streaming on Twitch once a week, probably Wednesdays at 1 p.m. starting in January. So look for that. As I said, my GitHub is markartakata at GitHub. That's my LinkedIn. Please add me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. If you're on CFML Slack, you probably already know I'm there, but I'm Mark Takata Adobe. And I also have daily office hours for the moment, because they haven't driven me completely mad, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. PST, Monday through Friday at myadobeconnect.com/Mark Takata. So with that, do we have any questions about GraphQL or Airtable or, I don't know, my awful haircut, anything? I'm gonna drink some coffee also. Very welcome, man. And also feel free, if you come up with questions later or don't want to share them here in public, feel free to DM me on the CFML Slack. If you are not part of the ColdFusion Slack community yet, please join us. There's a lot of us on there. Go ahead and just Google CFML Slack, and the Heroku endpoint will show up. You can go ahead and sign up. Thank you, Mikkel. I apologize again for the sound issues. Hopefully that wasn't something on my end. I just reconfigured my office and maybe things were not plugged in. Does Airtable allow connections to your own DB? So it does not do so directly. However, this actually is a really, really good place to use an integration like ColdFusion. So basically what you could do is you could take some of the data, and this is kind of the idea of what I was getting at here. Like, for example, if you were collecting some data for some project that you were doing and wanted to integrate that maybe with a contact manager or something along those lines, you could actually use that and then use ColdFusion to pass that data in and maybe do a little ETL on it, maybe do a little cleaning of the data. But it kind of gives you that really fast, ColdFusion, again, is we make hard things easy. We do fast development. This is a really fast way to just spin up a database without having to go to AWS, spin up a database instance, go to Azure, do Azure SQL, right? Like you just go in there, click a button, poof, it's there. Endpoints are available. You can use them right away. And then, share that as the data is coming in, you can build the integrations with your own stuff. Christopher Quinn says, thank you. Will there be some links examples available? So on my GitHub, I will be providing all of the code that I shared earlier, as well as my slide deck. And if you have any questions, please feel free to jump in at any of these places that I'm extremely online. So let's see. I think I caught something. Seems not to be useful for me at the moment, but a new vision of dev. It's very interesting. Yeah, Michael. I mean, it's definitely new and it's definitely different. It's getting better too, and I think as we continue to use this and continue to integrate this style of development, I think we're going to see it get a little more seamless. This base QL edition, by the way, absolutely wonderful. Such a nice little way to improve getting access to the API. Makes it much more powerful. It's just really great. Like kudos to the base QL team for doing that and making it free, which is really nice. Video quality. No, Michael, that's just how I look. I'm sorry. This is all I got. All right, so we got about 5 minutes for any other questions. If anybody's got anything else that they want to ask. Airtable, as you stated, is just one type of code list. Some of the other tools like Salesforce do something similar, right? Daniel, so no, actually the other tools do a lot of other different things. And maybe I'll have to hop in on some of them in maybe some of my Twitch sessions or do a webinar or two on them. They do a universe of different things. So for example, some of them do something as simple as tying one API endpoint to another with a transform function in the middle of it. So for example, if you have an email endpoint and you need that to come into a database based on a trigger that happens, but those don't really match, right? Like maybe your database has like name, and then the email is like first name, last name, or something like that. You can actually take that data, transform it, and pass it in with nothing in the center. It actually doesn't have any human interaction stuff involved in it. So that's one of the things. And there's also just a myriad of different things, even adding application. One kind, this isn't really no code necessarily, but if you're familiar with Adobe Connect, one of the things that we're doing right now that's super exciting is adding these pods into it that accentuate what Connect can do. And it's kind of the same thing. So you're taking a product like Connect, which is basically a video streaming type product, and you're adding the ability to, for example, ring a doorbell. That's one thing that we do. Or you can play games, or you can do polls, or you can enter in information into a database. That's actually something I'm going to be coding for Connect next month on my Twitch sessions. And I'm going to be building a little guest book for Connect for my office hours, because I would love when people come visit me for them to fill out a guest book and let my boss know that I'm not just sitting around playing video games for an hour every day. I'm actually chatting to folks and talking about ColdFusion. So, so that'll be on there as well. Yeah, and Daniel, it's amazing how big this industry is growing. Like, I think it's supposed to quadruple in size over the next 2 years, something like that. Like it's wild. It's like a wildfire, and a lot of these guys are just gonna like blow up because they're so niche. They're not actually providing enough of value for enough people. Like, they're just going to burn out through their VC money. But a lot of them, like Airtable, I mean, Airtable is great. It's so powerful and so flexible that they're going to do great. If this, then that. That's been a super, powerful and useful thing. Mike Viros asks, do I need an invite for the CFML Slack workspace? You do not. So you can just go to, let me see. Perhaps I can just kind of show you. If you just Google or Bing or whatever, if you just look up CFML Slack, you can, right here, join CFML on Slack. If you just click that button, it will send you somewhere where you can sign up, and then you can log into your account on there and join us. There's a lot of different channels, and it's not, this isn't like an Adobe ColdFusion. This is all CFML. So we've got Lucy folks, we've got Adobe ColdFusion folks, Framework One. We've got people using Command Box and Content Box and AWS. There's an AWS channel. There's a CFML beginners channel. It's great. Definitely look through the channels, because there's just a myriad of things that you can join. JSON approach is awesome, by the way. It works like a charm and very simple. yeah, it's really nice how it's able to just output the stuff that plugs directly into something like data tables. It solves so many problems. So anyway, I'm out of time. Thank you so much, everyone that came to see my session. It's been wonderful sharing this with you. Please do come to my open office hours, come to my Twitch stuff, visit me on Slack, send me an email, send me cat pictures. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the day. At the end of the day, please join me and Aditya Nima for a fireside chat talking about the future of ColdFusion and introducing him to the community.